Well, good day everyone, and welcome to the full review video of my Blaze King stove. Living completely off-grid in a log cabin is a challenge in itself, but when it's in the Canadian North you live, well, the challenge just gets that much greater. One of the major things you have to contend with is heating your home in the long, extremely cold winters. So I chose my particular stove, and after a full year of living here, I certainly put it to the test. As an added bonus in this video, I make an upgrade to my stove and offer plenty of tips and tricks to make your warming adventure the most pleasant one possible. So sit back, grab yourself a coffee or tea, and I hope you find it informative and enjoyable. Oh, and don't forget to offer your own opinions and tips in the comments section. Well, that fire's going pretty good there now. It feels good, I must say, to restart my season of burning wood. I just spent a full year practically burning wood. So a lot of you guys asked me to do a review of how the stove was performing. And I would have done it sooner, but I wanted to make sure I used it in all the conditions I possibly could. And after a full winter in Labrador, Canada, where we have one of the coldest winters that you could ever imagine to have, we have 6 months at least of winter. And our average temperature in January and February is minus 20 to minus 40 degrees Celsius. That's base temperature. I've seen it go as cold as minus 60, 62 with some wind chill. Of course, we live completely off-grid in a log cabin here, completely exposed to all of the elements of winter. If you follow my videos, you'll see we just built this cabin last year. So it was also an experiment and exciting to see if we could actually thrive here and be warm and comfortable throughout the winter. And I am happy to say we made it, obviously. And we had the epitome of comfort. Now, I've lived my whole life in different cabins. I actually work in the woods as well, so I can't tell you how many stoves I've used over the years, but I got a Blaze King stove. After lots of research, I went with the Blaze King Ashford 30, and the manufacturer boasts that it would burn up to 30 hours on one single burn, providing you use the thermostat correctly and you have the right type of wood. Now, I got asked a ton of times, does it actually burn 30 hours? Well, I can say I tested it. One time I left my cabin, I was gone for the night. I came back the next day, it was 26 and a half hours. When I came back, there were still coals in the bottom of the stove. I didn't even have to relight it. I just simply put some splits in there and away it went again. And I guess it wasn't a fluke, because I also went away one time for 25 hours. And when I came back, it was the same result. It did not go out. And believe it or not, I was here for months on end. And this stove does not ever shut off, remember, because it's so cold. And I literally went weeks and weeks without even having to cut up any splits, because it didn't have to be relit. So even at minus 30 degrees Celsius, one time we had a stint where it was like 2 weeks long like that. So it didn't let up. It was cold every day, every night, bitter cold. And we were unbelievably comfortable here in this log cabin. And this was our only heat source last year, so we had nothing else to fall back on, but this alone kept us comfortable. So what's the advantage of having a stove that burns long and more efficiently? Right off the top, I estimate I burned between 30 and 40% less wood last winter than I would have if I had my old stove, which was a pretty high-end stove, by the way. I had comfort in that I didn't have to be putting wood into it all the time. You put it full of wood and then you just kind of walk away, and it would go for 8, 10, 12 hours easy without having to reload it. A major comfort, some of you may not think this is a big deal, but it is. When you live here 365 days a year, you don't have to get up nighttime and restock the stove, because every other wood stove I've ever used, you've had to do that. Of course, to get up in the middle of the night, you have to completely wake up, come to your senses, go pick up some good wood, put it in the stove, and then try to get back to sleep. Sometimes it would disrupt your sleep. With this stove, you never have to get up in the nighttime. It burns extremely clean. When you saw me cleaning off the window in my introduction there, that's probably 3 or 4 times I've cleaned that window since I've had the stove, and that was a full winter of burning wood. Sometimes you'd wake up in the morning and the sides would be clouded up, but as soon as you throw some new wood in there and open up the thermostat, all of the soot would burn off. Some people have commented and said, well, you can't get it to draft properly sometimes to get a nice quick heat going. Oh yes you can. As you can see here, I don't have my door completely latched here. It tells you this in the owner's manual. You put it about halfway too, and just look how ferocious that fire is. My catalytic combustor handle is off, it's disengaged. I'll look at the thermostat here now, and you can see it's actually just up into that level. You can see the red indicator right here. It's up into that level now where I can actually turn on the catalytic combustor simply by putting the handle back, locking it in place. Your catalytic combustor is engaged. You're going to open up your door and put some more wood in. Make sure first you disengage it. That way any smoke that's inside of this stove at the time will simply go up the chimney. Now you want to keep your fire going a bit faster, a bit longer. Just don't engage it till after. You also see where I installed a new blower fan on the back of the stove, which is actually composed of 2 different blowers. And I didn't even have to use that last year. But it will be fun this year to experiment with that, you know. So if you want to get that air moving around in the cabin a bit faster, just turn on the fan. I'll turn it on now and give it a whirl. So it blows the air out all around the top of the stove here. Ooh, nice. So it's nice and quiet, and I just tested to see how much power consumption it was, because that's very important to us. We do live off-grid using solar and wind, and it only burns about 15 to 25 watts, depending on how fast you have the fan going. Oh, I actually have to move away from the stove a bit here because it does get hot very quickly. So a lot of you had comments about the catalytic combustor. Oh my, is it going to work for you? Is it going to get dirty fast? Is it going to wear out fast? So I've cleaned this catalytic combustor twice since I've had it. It takes about 2.5 to 3 minutes to do it. It's very easy to access. Anybody could do it. Let me show you real quick exactly how easy it is. All right, we let the stove go out. We've just been away for a few days, so it's a good time to clean off the catalytic combustor. And a lot of you guys wonder how to do it. There's a lot of work to it. It's as simple as this. Come see. All right, so inside the stove, I just got to take this guard off right here. Right behind that is the catalytic combustor. Yeah, it just pops right down. That's the combustor. You can see there's a little bit of dust on it. So I'll just take the shop vac now and vacuum that right out. And there we go, clean as a whistle, just like new. Put the guard back in place, and that's all there's to it, folks. Some of you wondered how effective the thermostat was. You get used to it really, really quickly. And you get, on a really cold night, I would just leave it about right there. On a warmer night, I would just turn it back maybe to there. And again, that's something that you learn. And one good thing about this thermostat is that it's consistent. You can almost put it dial it to the minute where you're used to having it. And it's a consistent result every time. This stove never runs away on you. What does that mean? What I mean is that I've had stoves like this where you pack them tight, and when you turn around and look at it a couple of minutes later, it's red hot in places, or if not, the whole side of it's red hot. That never happens with this stove. I guess there's controls built into it that I've never seen it. I have not seen my stovepipe get red hot. So when you get your cabin warmed up, it's a constant temperature then. It's very easy to regulate. You find it a little chilly, turn up your thermostat a little bit. You find it a bit warm, turn it down a little bit. And you often go into people's cabins and it's so hot inside the cabin it's uncomfortable, or it's cold inside the cabin and it's uncomfortable. With this particular cabin I have here and with this stove, you don't get that. It's just nice, warm, constant heat. It's as if you were in a house with electricity, really, and you had the thermostat set exactly to the temperature that you wanted to be comfortable on. People have said my Blaze King stove costs a lot of money. Well, without mentioning all of the other higher end brand stoves, it's roughly in comparison with that. You got to look at where your comfort level is and what you're trying to accomplish. Where we live off-grid, in the woods, in a log cabin, in the middle of a winter environment, you want to be comfort. So for us, it's worth investing a few extra dollars to make sure that we have that level of comfort and control, and it also keeps things safe. Now here's an angle a lot of people don't think about when they make those comments sometimes. I mentioned that I burned 30 to 40% less wood. That's one winter. Let's just say after 8 or 10 winters I had to change my catalytic combustor, and it cost me a few $100s to do that. Just this winter alone, if you calculate it, I've saved hundreds of dollars in saved gasoline alone. I use my truck, ATV, snowmobile, and chainsaw to cut wood. Well, I have 30 to 40% less trips I have to take now because of that more efficient handling of wood into the stove. So if you add that up over 5, 8, 10 years, you're money in. And I know if you buy a lower end wood stove, they tend to warp sometimes and other things start to kind of rust away on the inside of them. But with the quality of this stove, it is not warped one single bit. And I can't see any components are going to give out other than maybe replacing the catalytic combustor. So to buy one of these stoves as opposed to 2 or 3 of the other ones, then you're money in again. Now, kind of an insignificant, but I guess important factor with this stove too is the look of it. It looks very decorative, and you can always see the flame burning through the window. It's a fan favorite when people visit here. They always compliment me on my stove and ask me what type of stove it is. I've never seen a stove utilize and burn wood so efficiently as this stove. I'll incorporate a couple of clips here. When you turn on that catalytic combustor and it reaches the desired temperature, it re-burns all the gases, and it holds on to that main particle of wood as long as it possibly can. And you don't see much smoke coming out of your chimney because it's simply burning everything. When it's doing that, it puts on the most wonderful display. And that kind of adds to the comfort, I must admit, when you look over at your stove and you see this beautiful flame that's coming from your stove. Not only is it keeping you warm and comfortable and you hear the crackling of the wood, but the look of it, the visual sense of it, it just makes it even better. Well, the cabin is warmed up a lot already. I think I'll completely shut the door here, turn on the catalytic combustor, and just let that stove do its job for us for the next 6 or 7 months. Well guys, I hope I answered a lot of your questions today and comments. I look forward to further questions and comments on this stove or anything about the off-grid cabin that we have here. Thanks for tuning into this video, and until the next video, take care of each other, get outside and enjoy everything outdoors. We'll see you next time, guaranteed. And to answer your question of whether or not you can cook or warm things up on top of the stove, well, you most certainly can. Get outside. Time to go fishing.